Because you know why? This is Homies and Heroes. And Mel is one of those people. Look at this. Yes, you were! Dude.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Homies and Heroes Throwback Edition. This is the first one I'm going to be uploading from my season 1 that I wasn't able to put all the way together, but man, what a first episode to have. It's my friend Mel Chan. He has crushed it in every area of life. We were roommates at Oral Roberts University. I mean, this man was playing soccer at a professional level. He's a designer, he's a photographer, he's done everything in Hollywood you could think of in terms of fashion, and he's also been a creative director for a very popular band, maybe you know them, LANY, and that is mind-blowing that he's able to do all of that in just a short span of time, man. The dude's still in his 20s and he's still crushing it. And so I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you have already, and if you have not, please hit subscribe, please hit like, please comment, please show some love. We have so much more coming out. But for now, enjoy this throwback episode with my good friend, Mel Chan.
What's up, man?
Bro, yesterday, my live, hold on, let me make sure this, my live yesterday didn't work 3 times. I was scheduled to go on at 7. I didn't have it figured out till 7:15. People were booing me. They were throwing things at their I mean, I couldn't tell, but I'm sure they were, because what else would you do? My wife's on here, so she's watching.
I was going to use, yes, Lex.
Which means that I have to behave. I thought I was gonna break off the brakes on this one and just let it rip, but
yeah,
I got to go back into my living room after this.
I got you. Yeah, no, dude, the green room is amazing.
Hey, man, you know, I tried. I hope you enjoyed what we sent you over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
dude,
people don't know that.
You sent a limo for me. I felt great. Last time I was on, I think you had, what's his name? What's his name? Drake. And we crossed paths in the hallway. Yeah, but the green room
Did y'all
is
exchange
amazing.
numbers?
Say what?
Did you exchange numbers? I definitely told him that you were coming.
You know, I like to kind of keep my distance. You know what I mean? I don't like to intrude.
Well, I mean, 6 feet at least, right? COVID and nonsense. Drake is not exempt from the 6-foot rule. Y'all heard it here first. No amount of money. Actually, there probably is, though.
Maybe.
How many rich people have died from COVID? You tell me right now.
I don't know. It's your show, man.
Let me tell you, on my show, my opinions are reality. And so I don't know what topsy-turvy world we're about to enter into, but I'm going to jump in. Now, Mel, what I want you to do is, for people that don't know you, I want you to tell them who you are, and I want you to give them a little bit of what you've done in the last, the last 10 years you've worked everywhere. Just give a little bit of the things that you've done maybe in the last several years.
Yeah, of course. My name's Mel. I'm a friend of Ellie, son to Melchizedek and Maria, brother to Abby and Sarah. I'm a photographer, but most people probably know me from creative direction roles that I served on across kind of multiple platforms, both in the music industry and in the fashion space. It's been a wide gambit of things that I've been able to kind of participate in, be a small part in much of a bigger picture. But yeah, man, it's been a lot of projects. I don't know if I can kind of hone in on one, but that's kind of the role that I've been able to play across the board. You know, I've been really fortunate that there's a lot of really cool people that, for whatever reason, you know, they took their chance on me. They really believed in me, and they kind of set me up to do things that, without their, you know, kind of belief in me, or without their, without that kind of collaborative effort, I don't know that I would have had the opportunities that I've had. But yeah, it's been a lot, Ellie, a lot.
Dude, I know, and I just want to say this: amongst our mutual friends, you are the most mysterious person that we know, and that is like super. It sounds super contradictory because you're mysterious, but we also know you, but we don't know you all at the same time. We don't know.
Who
Okay,
am I?
this is a real story. This is a real story. Let me say this real story right now. I was in the library at Lee University, and I do not remember why I called Mel. I called Mel, and I was like, I forgot what I was calling you about, and I think it was around maybe nighttime where I was in Tennessee. I call you, and you sounded like you were just waking up, and I was like, Mel, and you're like, yeah, man, what's going on? You're like trying to whisper, and I'm like, man, what? Oh man, I'm in France right now, bro. I'm in France. I'm doing like a photo. I think you were doing like a photo shoot with like Louis Vuitton or something, or like Tommy Hilfiger, or like some like really big company or something. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. But you know what? At the same time, it makes perfect sense. I'm calling Mel, so of course he's in France right now, and I'm in the library calling about who knows what. I don't even remember what I was calling. I think you said that, and I don't even think I asked you a question after that, other than why in the world are you in Europe? And then you went through your spiel about how you snuck into Cuba, took a bunch of crazy pictures, and people love you now.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So, but that is kind of, I just want to explain our friendship, because that's kind of been the amazing part of our friendship has been that it's been just like super fluid. And dude, you are an inspiration on how you just kind of go with it, and things just, you know, like you said, you're like, I don't know how people wanted to take a chance on me or how things ended up. But can you talk a little bit about that? Because you very much don't have a traditional path to any of the things that you eventually did. Like,
Yeah, no.
But can you talk? Maybe there is a path. Can you talk a little bit to that?
Yeah, of course. So when I started, when you and I met, we were in college, and at that time, I had started in actually in the theology department. I wanted to explore that a little bit, and I think that's where I first met you. We didn't get close to later, but I actually started in marketing. So I was in the business school, and then the director there, he had left or was fired, let go, something not good had happened in that space. And I remember thinking, I need to really grow or hone in on this, right? So at that point, I had a conversation with the dean of College of Business, and this kind of conversation was what kind of shaped essentially the rest of the following 6 years, really, of my life. So I remember having this conversation with him, because I was like, at the time, I was like, dude, I want to be, CEO of a Fortune 100 company. Like, that's the goal. I want to be the CEO. And because I was choosing majors, I was either going to be marketing major, accounting, or finance. And I didn't know what to make my concentration as. And in expressing this to him, he was really kind. He was like, look, dude, would you, and I'd heard this advice before, which is, would you rather, he said to me, would you rather be good at all three things or great at one thing? Because you were really great at explaining kind of what you wanted. Sounds like you're really good at marketing. And a couple of friends had kind of communicated that to me as well. That like, hey, you can communicate well just in conversation. Have you looked into the marketing department? But I was not interested in sales, or I was not interested in that space. Fast forward a couple months down the line, I decide to focus on that. And that's when everything kind of happens, right? So I end up moving to LA in hopes to get into the business department at USC. But by that point, I had reapplied that same principle, which was I wanted to hone in and kind of focus on a specific craft of my work or of my life, really, so that I could just master something. I think that was kind of, before I knew that that's what I was doing, I think I was doing that subconsciously, where I was trying to chip away at all these other different things that I could do, that I probably did do. But I wanted to be a craftsman of sorts, right? So when I get to LA, I know I wanted to explore the arts a little bit more. I grew up in a small town, so it wasn't really an option here. I grew up kind of in the church, so my whole emphasis as a teenager, as a kid, it just kind of revolved around soccer, sports, school, church. Pretty much kind of similar experience that most people like in small towns have. So when I get to LA, this kind of world opens up, and I don't really know where to go or what to do. And I was living on a couch for about 2 weeks at my friend Caleb's house, who we weren't even that close of a friend. I remember I got to LA, and the house that I was supposed to be staying at, I couldn't move in yet. And so I was just stuck at LAX. I was prepared to just live at LAX for a little bit.
Really?
And but he was kind enough to lend me his couch until I could move in to another couch that I was going to be living at. But all that to say is that I had applied to different places, right? Because that was my thing. It's like, I need to be involved. I need to figure stuff out because I'm way too young. I don't know anything. That same professor who gave me that advice, he kind of broke down my 20s, 30s, and 40s. He said, and I'm sure he took this from someone else. I don't know who directly said this, but he says your 20s are for learning, 30s are for earning, and 40s for returning. And so in my 20s, I had just turned 20 when I got to LA. And I remember thinking, I have to learn. I have to be involved in some kind of artistic space, some kind of artistic community, whatever it was I was down. So I was just applying to different places, just like clothing stores, retail, offices, things like that. And nothing was really biting. And then I got to Union, Los Angeles, where my friend Ricky had just started there. And out of all the places that I had applied, I knew that there was a group of places that you probably shouldn't request an application for and stuff. I ended up requesting there. And he's like, actually, yeah, we are hiring. And the rest is history, man. That job essentially propelled me and put me in a place of really brilliant individuals, a lot of really cool people who have successful clothing lines, who have successful artistic careers. But that was a form of education for me. It was about 2 years that I did there, or maybe more. I don't know. But it was a constant, like I was just a sponge. I mean, I still feel that way, but at that time, it was everything that I knew about via blogs and websites and videos and social media. Now it was like right in front of me. I remember one of the craziest experiences that I had was there's this rapper named Mos Def, and he had come into the store, and he was friends with the owner of the store. And this was like week 1 of me having worked in the store, and we had closed down the shop. And I remember he was rapping, he was just freestyling into the mirror about his outfit. And I remember thinking, I was like, I'm 20 years old. I shouldn't be here. But I had that similar experience. So many times, Ellie, that I can't even, if I tried to talk about all of them, I'd fail miserably. But so many moments in my life that I kind of was an outer body experience where I was like, this is wild that I get to be a part of this, a small part. But that's what it was. For me, it was a continual moments of just really trying to be a part of something and contribute. I think pretty early on for me, that was key. Because I know like a lot of people that move to LA, a lot of people call like transplants. They're always like very ambitious, and it's a good thing. But oftentimes they become disillusioned because Hollywood isn't what they expected. The actors get there and they're not pretty enough. They're not skinny enough. They're not tall enough. Artists get there and their work is corny. Their work isn't relevant anymore. All of their sources are outdated. And so this constant wrestle of like, oh, I came here to change the industry, or I came here to leave my mark and make a name for myself. Because that's what everybody goes to LA for, right?
Right.
And that's, it's cool, but I think instead of using the word, change the industry, I think a better word that we can use is to contribute to an industry. And I think that was a major gear that turned for me, where I was like, I was no longer trying to necessarily make a name for myself or just, work on with the next big artist, or work on the next big gig, or get the next big job. I was just constantly trying to contribute, however small that was or however big that was. Because when I first started, it was like I was working both in the office and in the store, and it was just as an internship. I was like, dude, I'll do whatever. Right? I'll do whatever. If I'm terrible, if I suck, You can fire me and you'll never have to see me again.
Wow.
And that was without pay. Halfway through day one, Ricky, the guy I mentioned earlier, he came up to me. He's like, hey, you know, how would you like to start tomorrow? I was like, shoot, I'm in.
Wow.
I'm so in. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm going to do 2 days. And it was a full-time gig right off the bat. No idea what I was doing, but I made myself available to contribute to the people and their projects. And ultimately, man, that's what I kind of put me in a space where I could work as an artist myself or contribute as an artist myself. I think I have a long way to go, but some of the stuff that I've been able to be a part of, I'm really grateful to the people that gave me that kind of opportunity, that shared their platform with me, you know, nobody. But it was because of that. It was just this matter of contribution. It wasn't this like, oh, this is the next big thing. I'm going to go try to be friends with him so that he can give me a job, or friends with her so she could give me a job. It was just a continual thing, man. And I'm really grateful for that, dude.
Yeah, and you know what? I think you hit on it. You talk about your openness and how closed people arrive. And people arrive with their talents already packaged up, nicely wrapped with the bow on top saying, hey, I got something that is going to change the game for everybody. But they don't come open enough to realize that you're coming into an ecosystem, you know, that is a lot older than you, a lot richer, a lot deeper, so many dimensions to it, especially if you're coming out of, and then we both are from South Texas, and culture travels slow here. If anything, here culture is like cement. It's what it is. San Antonio culture, Valley culture, it's gonna be what it is. You know, we get dances late, we get music late. And so trying to come and bring that into such a fluid space, you remain so open. And you saying you worked for free with, I mean, obviously with intentions that, you know, eventually something will come out of it. But as to your shock, not thinking, okay, the next day. So my question to you is, where did you get that openness from? Do you believe that that's like you're predisposed to being that type of person? Did you learn that from someone somewhere? How did you get that way?
I mean, for me, it's, you know, without a doubt, it's kind of in relation to my upbringing. A lot of my my youth, I helped out at church, and it was always this constant contribution. I was like really involved in the youth department. That's where I feel like half of the people that know me are either from that point in my life where I was very involved in church, or post that, where I've been involved in like kind of more the music industry or the fashion industry. But for me, it's without a doubt that it's where I began, because for me, I mean, you're that's what you do now. You know, you're a pastor. And so a lot of the stuff you have to roll with punches, you have to adjust, you know, and I think for me, being exposed to that kind of so early on, it helped me navigate kind of more difficult moments in my life. And as I got older, I had to adjust in different ways. But without a doubt, I think for me, that's what it was. I'm a big believer, dude, in like hard work gets found out. Or good work gets found out. So if you're an artist, if you're a musician, whatever, it applies across the board. If your work isn't getting the recognition that you feel it deserves, take a hint. Take a step back, go back to the drawing board. Be like, okay, something's not working. I have to adjust. You know, we hear the terms, you know, most of life is showing up. And that's great, but I think a more truer version of that is most of life is showing up and adjusting after you've shown up and things don't go as planned.
That's really good.
That disposition to accept the things that are happening around you as if you chose them, it makes you so much more susceptible to opportunity. And the other thing is you have to be prepared. There's a lot of people who have great intentions, but maybe their ego gets in the way of their intentions, and so they think they're God's gift to earth. They're the artist that everybody's been waiting for, and that's great. It's good to have that kind of confidence, but I'll tell you, man, it gets complicated to live in that kind of lifestyle and not contribute to an industry that you so wish to make an impact with, man. And I think a lot of people, you know, I was having conversation with my little brother. He's a music producer, and he was gonna move to LA about a couple years ago. He wanted to do try a couple things out there, and he asked what kind of things I would recommend, and I recommended this to him and to many of people who've reached out and been like, oh, I want to move to X city and I want to do this. I'm like, have proof of work in the case of opportunity. That's been another big thing for me, where I'm like, look, here's this major opportunity for me. If I don't have the proof of work, however small or in quantity or in influence the project is, if I don't have this evidence that I can do the things that I say I can do, it's useless. You can have the job of your dreams, the career of your dreams, the opportunity of your dreams, and if you don't have proof of work, you can be prepared. Preparedness is not usually the issue. People are usually very willing to work. I would like to assume that people are down to just really work their butts off for what they want, but a lot of them don't like to do work when no one is looking. And that's the proof of work. That's what's changed the game for me. So many photo shoots, so many album art, artwork, so many things, even music videos that I've done that will never see the light of day. But that's what put me on this place where now I can work. But it's having proof of work in the case of opportunity, for me, has been one of the most pivotal moments of the little successes that I've had in my career. I mean, like I've done nothing in comparison to so many of my heroes, to so many people who I look up to. But the only way that I can try to get there, and that's not just with photography or myself as an aspiring artist, that's just with a lot of practical things. I have to have proof of work. I have to show that I can do the things that even other people will say that I can do. You know what I mean? But that's been a big thing, man, for me.
Yeah, and I think that it definitely falls under the principle, by your fruits you will be known. And it has to be ripe fruit. It has to be edible fruit. You can't just show up unprepared. And I think that the faith of someone else in you will come about by the fruit you've already produced. And then on top of that, that's how it works, because they're still taking a chance even though they've seen your past stuff. And if you don't have any past stuff, then you've basically dug a hole that, more than likely, unless the person's like your parent, like your actual biological parent, you're probably not getting a hand up. And so I think that is a big part of what is produced, is the process that people don't see. Can you speak to, for example, you wouldn't say this, but I'll say it for you, right? You were the creative director for LANY, and you guys were touring around with several pop stars that people would know. And so my question to you is this: a lot of people want to be in the industry, and they want to tour, and they want to do they want to be on the bus, they want to go to the cities. What surprised you about getting there? That maybe you didn't know before you got there. What surprised me? What surprised you about once you got there and you were on the bus and you were touring and you were meeting people and you were doing this? Was there anything that caught you by surprise? You're like, oh snap, I didn't think it would be like this. Is there anything in that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things. The first thing that comes to mind is, I want to be careful. I think for me, the most immediate thing that comes to mind is how practical it can be. We look at artists, we're constantly listening to music. I think that's a beautiful thing too, it's a complicated thing. It's a double-edged sword, how much access we have to music and stuff like that, right? But I think one of the good things is that it gives an opportunity, provides a little crevice of space for independent artists to find their way in a otherwise very kind of mudded universe, right? But for me, I kind of had this mystery about it, right? And I think most of us do. That's what art is supposed to do for the most part. It's supposed to create this illusion of ease and nothingness. And when I started working, I started realizing that there were moments like in and I'll speak to LANY, right, that artist, the guys that you just mentioned. I remember for them, right, I remember clearly the moment when they got a manager and the moment when they got a PR team. It was a huge shift, right? And most people, we know these things, we understand them, but we don't understand how practical some of our dreams and aspirations can be. My favorite thing about them, and that's what took me by surprise, was like not how easy, because it's not easy. Like the work that these guys put in, that even though it is pop, like it was just hours of nonstop work and work and work and work. And that's the other thing that surprised me, is that when we started, right, it was a lot of work, but it was like we were down. And then once we got to that moment where people were recognizing them, it was another degree of like intense work. I remember one day we had a show in Manchester. I want to say we had a show in Manchester, and we had to shoot a music video in London the next day. So they played their show, and it wasn't even their tour. It was their first time in Europe. It was my first time in Europe. And we had a very tight window of space to get from point A to point B. But we're in Manchester, we hop on a train, we get to London. Call time is like 5 a.m. the next day. We shoot at 5 a.m. all the way up until 10, 11 p.m. And then we have to catch a flight the next day at like 5 in the morning. And then they touch down in Birmingham, I think is when they had to their next show. And we touched down in Birmingham, and what happens? They don't go to their hotel, they don't go to the bus, they go straight into interviews all day long up until their show. So there's this two-part side, right, where in the beginning it was like, how are we going to get there? And it was very practical, you know, get somebody that understands the industry and that you trust, that can help you get there, you know, whether it's the manager or a PR team that can put you in front of an audience that you know, will respect or enjoy your work. And then the other side that surprised me was more work you have to put in after you've already put in so much work. It's like that, you know, famous saying, you know, the reward of good work is more work. And fortunately for them, it's like as they were gaining traction, they were gonna have to do like double that, right? I'm sure, you know, things kind of cruise after a little bit, but it's never over. And to me, I always kind of assumed that there was this nonchalant, kind of laid back attitude, but man, it was just boom. There was always something to do. And that sharpened me, even though I'm not a musician, or I'm not an aspiring, you know, solo artist. To me, that was really inspiring to see how hard, you know, Paul, Jake, Les, and even Rupert, their manager, worked, or even like other people on the crew that are not even meant, you know, on stage, like Steven, like Alex, their sound guy, like their sound engineer. They were playing a show in Seattle, and he was just so good at his job. He was just a random guy who was doing audio that night at the Crocodile, and which is a venue in Seattle. And Paul and the guys loved him so much, they brought him on board, and he's been with them ever since. Wow. You know, again, proof of work in the case of opportunity. Yeah. But yeah, there's so, like, all of them, like everybody that's on that team works so hard, and I think it trickles down, man. It trickles down from Jake, Paul, Les, Rupert into kind of, you know, the people who are just like stagehands and things like that. It's really beautiful to see, especially in pop. You know, I'll be the first guy to be like, oh, pop sucks, or blah blah blah, and some of it does. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it, right? But there's some good in there. We forget, you know, that there's some good stuff in that genre as well. But to see how much work these guys put in, it made me respect the craft, their craft, a lot more, man. And I mean, on top of building a resume, I think I build really great friendships with those guys. And so again, it's if we kind of take those moments as little kind of gifts instead of just some stepping stone, I think it puts us in a better place. It positions us to or to willingly want to contribute to their dream. I think that that's kind of a removal of your own ego sometimes, where you just have to be like, yo, this isn't my show, but I have to treat it like it were. And I think everybody kind of on that team really, really understood that. And I was grateful to be a small little, figure in such a insane world that they've built.
Yeah, and man, I could imagine the pressure that you were under being the creative director. And it's like, right, you're a creative director for an artist, a group of creatives. You're a creative director for creatives. And so you were, and not only did you do it, you crushed it while you were doing it. And so my question to you is this: how do you remain inspired to create in an industry that is just constant? It's just, you feel it. It's like, I'm not even in the industry, and I feel like, whoa, like I couldn't imagine jumping in that current. How do you keep up with it? Am I using the right term to keep up? Is there another thing that you think you did that maintained your creativity in the journey? How do you remain inspired?
Knowledge of self, understanding who you are at your very core. Like as a person, as Mel, who am I? Wow. Understanding that, to me, and I'm not saying I have myself kind of down packed and, super cleanly understood and write a book. To me, knowledge of self, understanding who you are to your very core, your ethics, your morals, your religion, your consciousness, your spirituality, the things you hate, the things you love, the things that you're willing to spend the rest of your life chasing, the things that you're not willing to compromise. Starting there, and then everything else kind of is formulaic. You can go to a better school, you can get a different book, you can listen to different music, you can watch a better movie, you can look into a different artist, a different architect, a different scientist, whatever it is that you are. But if you don't know who you are, if that knowledge of self, and to me, I actually learned that from hip hop. That's like one of the pillars of hip hop is knowledge of self. And a lot of people, we don't, that's why sometimes in hip hop, we're like, oh, bro, that guy's corny. He's faking it. It's because we can see right through that. As human beings, we're like, bro, that's not him. Why does he all of a sudden have an accent on this song? Why is he dressing different in this music video? But for me, staying inspired, it boils down to that. There's this an economist named David Galeson. He describes two kinds of creatives. We use the word genius oftentimes, and he talks about conceptual innovators and experimental innovators. And a conceptual innovator is usually who most of us look at him like, whoa, he's a genius. That's the guy we say that's genius. Your Picasso, your Andy Warhol, your Basquiat's, right? These people who, they find their best work kind of early in life. They work quickly, they articulate their work quickly, and this is great, right? These are really great people. But there's a second side of this kind of innovative spirit, and that's the experimental innovators. These are people who aren't clearly articulated. They don't work quickly. They do endless drafts. They do one thing a million times, and then by round 101, they're like, actually, I don't like this anymore, and they start again. And it's these things that take time, right? And it's not this dualistic, like one is better than the other. It's just understanding, where do I fall? Do I lean heavier on a conceptual innovator? Do I lean heavier on an experimental innovator? And for me, I know that I lean more to experimental. I overthink things so much. And at first I would get frustrated with myself, because I'd be like, dude, Mel, just put work out. And I had friends who tell me, like, Mel, dude, it's not that serious. And I agree. I need to put work out. And two, it's not that serious. But because I know that this is how I work, this is how I function as a human being, how I function as an artist, as a musician, as whatever the individual is, understanding that kind of process that your brain does when you want to put interesting work out, it really puts you in a space where you can take on criticism or take on advice, not be offended, and then grow from that. I mean, you talk about, I'm trying to think of like other, you know, with the conceptual like innovators, you have like Herman Melville, right? He was that Moby Dick. He was 32 years old when he wrote that, super quick. You have Orson Welles, you know, who directed Citizen Kane when he was 24 years old. Just quick.
That's
so
crazy.
How does Orson Welles direct Citizen Kane at 24 years old? How does Bob Dylan write A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall at 23 years old? How does he have the kind of conceptual understanding of the universe and the things that be so well to articulate it to the T? How do they do that? At the same time, you have, you know, Mark Twain, who writes Huckleberry Finn in his late 40s, bro. You have Alfred Hitchcock, who doesn't reach his prime until his mid-50s after experimenting with the thriller genre over and over and over and over again. And so because a lot of these people are our heroes, we just grow up knowing their name, right? And we just like, oh, these guys were born great artists, or they were born geniuses, or they were born you know, masters of their craft. In some cases, that's the truth. You know, Picasso was notorious for, you know, doing like 100, like, or not 100, but doing a great quantity of paintings in one day, in a single sitting, you know, whereas like Cézanne was notorious for doing 100 paintings of the same thing, 100 renditions of the same thing. And understanding where you are as an individual and how your creative process works, it starts with the knowledge of self. It starts with this identity, start with you asking deeper questions, in my opinion, and then allowing those to inform your work. And that to me is really inspiring. To me, that's how I stay inspired. And I'm not always, right? I'm not always inspired. I think you know that. I think my closest friends know that. But I'm not necessarily, that gives me the advantage where I'm not necessarily looking for inspiration, right? I am inspired. I allow myself to be inspired. This kind of degree of awe and wonder is something that's really hard to maintain. As you get older, you have failures, you have things that, you know, you hope you would be living in by now that you're not. You have a roadmap that for your life and career that kind of breaks. And so it's really easy for you to grow bitter and to grow, you know, tired. And it's important to embrace these feelings, right? I think for me in the beginning, and I'm still in the beginning, but in the beginning of my career, I was constantly trying to like negotiate with myself and my negative feelings or my disillusions, where I was like, nah. See, what happened was that boom, boom, boom. And really, there's nothing within my reach that I could have done differently to make a moment count more for me than what I did. And I'm comfortable up to this point in my life that everything that I've done that was successful was because I showed up. And then everything that I did that wasn't successful, I still showed up. And to me, that's I've been able to find like to me, that's how I've been able to stay afloat, at least in my own consciousness and even spirituality, where I can, you know, draw a little bit deeper than just being like, oh, I need to go watch a movie or I need to do this. And I'll be the first one to say I can romanticize like certain things. Sometimes it's not that like serious where you have to dig deeper. Sometimes it's literally just drink water. Sometimes it's just take a walk, right? Yeah. But to me, that's where it started, where I had to get to know myself better and come to terms with who I was and who I'm hoping to be later in my life.
Wow, man, so much insight in that. I think that there definitely is a discovering that we continue to go on in our journey of really the intricacies of who we are as a person. I think that we don't give ourselves enough credit to believe that we were created with a type of genius within us. And it might not look like the genius of our neighbors, but it doesn't diminish the genius that is within us to create, regardless of which way we lean. The work is always valid. And I think, like you're saying, we hear all these names and we romanticize their lives and say, oh, well, they got it on their first try, or they got it, man, they were in kindergarten and they were already just blowing teachers away with their knowledge. But the end result on their life's work remains basically the same. It impacts people through the generations. And I think that the history books, as you and I know, and you just stated, I didn't know any of the ages of any of these people.
Right.
But their work still
it's
impacts.
this thing that we make up for ourselves. It's
right.
This dualistic thinking where, you know, psychologists, they identified that all of our thought process by the age of 5 is dualistic. We only know what tall is in relation to short. We only know what white is in relation to what the color black is. And sometimes in our creative process or in our daily lives, we have this gambit of feelings and sensitivities where we only think that there's these two things where it's like, if I'm not a genius, I must be an idiot. Or if I'm not great, I must be small. And I think this kind of thing, it's unfortunate, but I think if you don't address it to yourself, if you don't address it and admit, you know, to yourself that this is kind of the thought process that you had, you're gonna stay stuck. You're not gonna create, or you're not gonna be able to write the next song or preach the next sermon. Whatever it is, if your only thing is in comparison to somebody else, you're never gonna enjoy the thing that you have to contribute. You're never gonna enjoy the thing that you have to offer to your community. And that's a big thing for me, man. I for a long time, I was like, some of my work, I was like, who is seeing my body of work? Like, who is looking at my photos? And I realized that a lot of my work, a lot of the people that where I grew up in, they weren't seeing my work, because the people where I come from, they don't think about a photo as art. They don't think about painting. They don't think about a piece of clothing as something intricate and stuff like that. And it's for a reason, because the stakes sometimes in lower income communities are much higher. They don't have the luxury to be like, oh, I'm going to take 3 hours of my day to go to a museum and stare at a painting and see what it tells me. They don't have the luxury. You know, sometimes lower income families, they have to work 2-3 jobs to make ends meet. And so for me, as an aspiring artist, I have to put that into the equation of my life and work, where it's like, I want these people, I want to contribute to their lifestyles as well. What I'm doing right now is not doing that. I need to adjust. But that doesn't happen with dualistic thinking, and it doesn't happen without knowledge of self, understanding who you are. I think a lot of people, especially me, right? And, you know, I've been wrestling with a lot of things lately, my own faith and my own process of work. And like I said, for so long, I tried to suppress these feelings, suppress these emotions, because they were bad, right? Because they weren't good, right? Because I know what good feels like. Because I've felt good before. So these kind of feelings of insecurity and of doubt and of, you know, whatever it is, they must be bad and they must be useless. But that's not true, Ellie. There's so many quote unquote negative situations in our lives, and in my life in particular, that I have to believe are going to contribute to my own ethos, to my own consciousness, to my own spirituality, to my own faith, where I can work from this place of really just not disagreeing with negative moments in my life, and just being like, word, like, this is what I live with right now. Like, this is the, you know, this is the little thing that I have to kind of take with me. And we're so quick, you know, especially even in conservative spaces, in Christian spaces, where we're like, you know, we're so quick to point the finger at a bad thing because it's unfamiliar. And to me, some of the most pivotal moments in my life, outside of wanting to be a relevant artist or whatever, to me, it's been these moments of uncertainty, of unfamiliar territory, I've really been able to sharpen, the tools that I want to contribute with.
Yeah.
And this kind of process, it has to start there, man. I mean, you can probably say that for your line of work as well. I guarantee you, some of your best sermons have come from moments of serious doubt, of serious struggle,
Yeah.
And it's not to glamorize struggle either. Like, I have to go through this so that I can do that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the situation that surrounds you, however good or bad it feels, it's what you have.
Yeah.
And you can use it to your benefit. Even if you don't believe in the things that you and I maybe believe, right? Even outside of your own, consciousness or whatever you want to call it, you can bring a reason to the thing that's going on. And to me, that's such a powerful thing of the individual, that we sometimes forget that sometimes a negative situation can be bad. And that's not optimistic thinking, at least not for me. I know I'm not an optimist, I know I'm not a pessimist either, but I have to believe that I can bring some kind of reason to the situations around me. And that doesn't come to me from some other world, like some other, universe where I was just, boom, inspired to have this predisposition. It's in community, it's in relationships, it's in friendships. To me, one of the things when I was making the shift from just working in music to working on personal work, a big reason why I made the jump was because I realized that there was things that I wasn't willing to compromise. There was things that I wanted to build within myself. And one of those was community. And I want to do one thing for a really long time and be faithful in that direction, right? And so to me, it's so important that you address that early on in whatever it is that you're doing, to be able to be like, this isn't what I signed up for. How did it become this? I'm going to either shift or move or, whatever it is that's necessary in your own process, I think.
Yeah, and it comes full circle to what you said at the beginning, the openness and the ability to wrestle with the fact that you may not even know that you don't know that there are more than one or two ways this could go, or there are more than one or two options, but we paint ourselves in a corner and we have already deemed that we know. As much as we say we don't, we really kind of within ourselves say that we do. And so that's the fallacy right there, that argument of saying, no, it's either this or either that. And I would even argue, and I say it, I think that a majority of Christianity suffers from that, where it is very much, it's either this or it's either that. And I think that the Bible is so clear that God is so multidimensional in handling us individually that, man, to define what he's doing right now in your life, or to define what he's wanting to do with the rest of your life, like that is impossible. There's no way, because of how it writes the Romans 8:28 that he makes all things work together for good. And I love that it says all things, because it doesn't specify good or bad. It just says whatever it is, whether you think it's good, it's bad, or it's all of those things work together. And so I can't say, oh, this bad thing happens, so because a bad thing happens, this thing has to happen next, or because a good thing happens, or it really kind of takes all that away, and it makes us remain open and sensitive in the middle of whatever you're in, right? Right. And I think you're alluding to that a lot, and I think that really does speak to me. My last question to you, because Instagram's going to kick us off, because these dudes they're chickens and they don't want us to speak for more than an hour. But what would I be surprised about the spirituality of Hollywood? What would surprise me? Because you were in the mix with a bunch of people. What would surprise me about Hollywood spirituality that a South Texas boy would assume? Because we come from the same region of the States. What would surprise me?
Oh, bro.
It could be anything. Like
I know what I want to say. I want to I want to be mindful of people's journeys. I want to be mindful of people's own processes.
Fair.
The biggest surprise is it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. We love to glamorize large platforms. We love to glamorize bigger stages.
Yeah.
And sometimes in spirituality, that doesn't mean it's any better than the little thing that you're doing in your small town. And my biggest kind of moment where I was like, whoa, like this is something that we're all kind of going through was going to, having these conversations with friends, realizing that despite them maybe being older or maybe being more involved in certain realms of the church or spirituality, they were struggling with some of the same things that I was struggling, some of the same questions. Yeah. And I wanted to have a conversation about these things. And sometimes people are not open to that, right? And so I would say it's that, man. It's this, how important community is in any sphere, specifically within the church. I don't know if you had the same hermeneutics professor,
Dr. Lamb.
Dr. Lamb, and he said this thing, man, it rocked my world, where he talks about Christianity in the age of Caesar, where he talks about how we weren't taught how to be the majority. That once we became this, what we are to what the religion is today, it became fashionable. And the way that Caesar stopped the growth of the church. We look at early writings of Franciscan priests or whatever. I'm forgetting who said this. Maybe it was Saint Francis who said that the early church grew on the blood of the martyrs, right? Yeah. So how he changed that is he made it fashionable, and I think that's the greatest dent in what our faith can really be, is that we want to be so relevant so bad. And I'm like, dude, here's the thing, man. That's not the end game here. Yeah. Our end game is to be a light, is to be the salt of the earth, is to be a good neighbor. It's to be available to the needs of our community. It's to make ourselves available to the needs of our neighbor, to be a better friend, to be a better contributor in your community. And it became this great kind of song and dance and this salvation project to ignore our own demise, or pretend like we weren't, gonna, reach the end of our lives. And so to me, I think that need, I think it's more than just the religion. It's just our human need to want to matter, to want to be relevant. But I think you'd be surprised with how much people across the board want to that relevance. And I think once you address it, I think it's easier for you to remove your ego, for you to remove your own idea of what impact means, and actually be able to impact your communities as a church, as an artist, as a musician, as a thinker. Yeah. Whatever it is, man. I think to me it's a beautiful thing to be human. We have this consciousness that we're aware, we're self-aware. And especially in our faith, we try so hard to suppress that and to be like, nothing's wrong. And when really I feel like sometimes that's, moments where we can address deeper parts of our own journeys by saying, this doesn't feel good, right? Yeah, cool. And I think to me, that was one of the biggest shocks of spirituality in LA is we're all trying to escape. We're all trying to get out. And I think sometimes that's not necessary.
Wow, man, I think that was super profound. Everyone's loving it in the chat, and I'm sure people are going to love it watching this back. that comes from a place of deep conviction. I know, experience. This is not just something you read somewhere, something you heard somewhere. You experienced that. That's why I asked you that question, because I just believe that there is a wealth within you that, man, can really change someone's perspective. And so, dude, I'm so glad you joined me. So glad we got this chance to talk. This is definitely part one of however many parts we're going to do of this, because I definitely want to ask you a million more questions. Last thing, I know that right now, man, you're in between seasons right now, but is there a place that people could go see possibly your artwork, or is there a shout out to a place that you would love people to check out? Either from yourself, or you're just like, hey, I'm into so-and-so, they're dope, and you should check it out.
Yeah, right now, I'm like you said, I'm at home. I'm taking care of this family emergency. But I think a really great place that we can all meet at. I'm trying to think of what's something that we can contribute to here. It seems that the nature of the the global pandemic. I think just if you can and if you are available, make a contribution to Feeding America if you're able to do that. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, yeah, let's enjoy things and not be so serious.
Cool, man. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mel Chan. I'm gonna say part one because we definitely want to have you back on, man. I think that this talk was so amazing. So many buddies that were jumping in. I saw Angelo, Daniel Hastings has jumped in late as always. And then next time we're gonna talk about all our college stuff, and I'll just tell you, some things never change. I have this on the side just in case. I just need a little boost halfway through, but man, you were fine and it was great, and I enjoyed every bit. So, ladies and gentlemen, please go give Mel a follow. He is fantastic at everything he does. I had him on here because I believe that the way that he thinks and the way that he views the world is so needed in a generation that is copy-paste. He is unique. He loves being that way, and I see it in his life through the consistency of his life that he's going to be a pioneer, because what is considered unique / weird in one season is considered a pioneer, respectable in the next. And so, man, you are the next big thing, bro. And I can't wait to have you back on. Or the next small thing. Hey, or the next medium thing. Remember, not dualistic. We have I have to pick more than one option. All right, man. Hey,
dude, say hi to your wife, say hi to your baby, say hi to your mom and dad and your sister, please. I love you guys so much, man.
You got it, bro. Peace.